You know what it takes to become a train driver? Running a whole rail company, that's another level.
For people who might not know what a managing director does.
In the industry, we're like, oh, can you really do that? And I was like, well, yeah, I am.
I feel like you have to be stern. What is it like?
Well, I mean, I'm not known as someone who smiles a lot. I'm always getting told off for not smiling. Yeah. But
Is that because you feel like that's part of the job role?
I just think I'm a bit grumpy by nature, probably. But
at least you're honest, though. I think about running train companies that...
I always have to be careful answering these questions because, you know, we pay, I think, a reasonable salary for drivers.
That'll definitely make a good video, driver salaries. I don't know how your day-to-day is at the moment, and are we likely to see automation? But do you use things like ChatGPT and stuff like that?
AI can do quite a good job.
Could you ever see a day where AI is involved in everyday operations?
I'm not really interested in AI taking over, but my perspective is AI is about helping all of us do our roles better rather than getting rid of me or you or anyone else.
It's good to know. All right.
But I might be wrong.
Lovely to meet you.
Good to see you.
All right. So I just wanted to start off by saying, how did you get involved in railway, or how did it all come about?
I've always liked trains. I think back to my earliest memories when I was about 2 years old, my grandparents took me down to the railway and I ran as a very excited 2-year-old towards the fence to watch the trains. So a lot of my teenage years were spent following trains, and I developed an interest, became more interested in the business perhaps than just the trains themselves. So when I finished at school with my A-levels, I joined as a summer job on the railway, and I decided to stay, and British Rail sponsored me through university when British Rail was the operator of the UK network, and my career has moved around the railway, but I've been on the railway since I was 17, bit of time in those 3 years at university, but that's what I've done over the last sort of 36 years.
Briefly run us through your progression, first role, making your way to obviously to managing director.
Yeah, well, the first job I did was actually answering the telephone. A lot of people these days go, what the hell was that all about? Yeah. Because we just look on our phones today. But in those days, you had to ring up what was called the Telephone Inquiry Bureau, and people would tell you train times and fares and ticket information. And I was one of those people. So I had to go through the timetable, the fares manual, and then I worked my way through the ticket office, through an administration job in the area manager's office in Reading Station, went off to university. I came back in all the holidays at uni and did lots of different jobs, from cleaning carriages to announcing trains to working on the platform, more ticket office work in the head office, supporting a lot of special events. And when I came back from university, they put me in the control office, controlling the turbos that had just arrived, brand new trains. And then I went to Slough Station, duty manager, station manager. I did some other jobs in the Thames Trains head office. Yeah. And then I went to Railtrack and worked in their London head office for just over a year. And then I went up to Manchester as operations director for a business called First North Western, but I ran all the trains in Manchester, Liverpool, Lancashire, Cumbria, North Wales for 3 years. Great job, loved it. And then I came down south to London and was operations director for some of the commuter businesses in London, a managing director. And then I came back to Great Western in 2008 and I became the managing director later that year. And I've been here ever since.
Yeah. Lovely to see the progression. Obviously making your way up from uni, making your way to where you are now. It's amazing. All right, so a lot of these questions are just based off of a lot of the stuff of what I get asked online. So we're going to kick it off with the first question. For people who might not know what a managing director does, briefly just tell us what your day-to-day, a typical day looks like for you.
Every day is different when you're managing director. Some days I'm in the office chairing meetings or going to other people's meetings. Sometimes I'm out and about on the network meeting stakeholders, meeting members of parliament. Sometimes I'm in London in the Houses of Parliament or government offices. Sometimes I'm going out around the patch. So yeah, it varies. The day you're filming me, I've started off in my office in Swindon, catching up on some emails, doing a couple of video calls. I've allotted some space to film your great video, Derek, and then I'm off to Bristol for a meeting to discuss infrastructure investment, and then I'm heading back up to the Thames Valley later on today. So a bit of variety today. Most days have a bit of variety, probably more time in meetings than I'd like. I enjoy being out and about.
So a lot of travelling then, I see.
Yeah, but of course the great thing about being the MD of a railway business, you know, when I'm out travelling, it's really useful. And, you know, between my job and my personal life, I'm pretty much on the trains every day. So I'm normally out and about on the network somewhere.
All right. Yeah, definitely going to ask you a bit about that near the end, about your personal life, because it'd be nice to know what you do in your spare time. What's something about running train companies that would generally surprise the average passenger?
Maybe they'll be surprised by the complexity and just how many different elements there are. People issues, engineering issues, you know, sometimes contractual issues. There are big financial issues, thinking about how we bring everything together to allow us to run our service in an environment where there's often pressure on us, financial pressure, but obviously expectations from customers and stakeholders. But it's on the whole, I enjoy the job, but it has its challenges.
When people imagine a railway, they picture like drivers, guards, trains. But what are unseen teams and processes that actually keep the services or GWR running?
Yeah, well, of course, there's a lot of engineering activity. So we have a lot of engineers in our own business and through companies like Hitachi who not only keep the trains going and service them overnight, but we're also rebuilding, you know, our locomotives on our sleeper trains. We've literally pulled them apart in our depot down at Plymouth and rebuilt them. Big, heavy engineering. And our colleagues in Network Rail are doing similar things. You know, they're out every night inspecting the track, but then they're doing big renewals work. You know, we're getting ready for a big block at Christmas where they're going to completely replace the junction just east of Slough Station.
Speaking of Plymouth, I heard that the HSTs are leaving soon.
Yeah, we're a bit sad to see the HSTs finish, but they're 50 years old pretty much. So they've had their day. They're not the right train really to run into the future. They're very expensive to run. We're having to spend a lot of money maintaining them. And the Class 175s we're bringing in, I think, are a really nice train, and they'll be a good replacement.
What are the biggest operational challenges that you face on a daily basis, and how do you overcome them?
There's a lot of operational challenges running a railway. A lot of those come from the infrastructure. So we need to make sure the infrastructure that Network Rail give us is, you know, open, available, fit for use. That has to be maintained. There are outside influences, sometimes like trespass and weather, which have to be managed. And within our own business, obviously making sure we've got enough trains, making sure we've got enough trains is really important, enough colleagues to run the train service, and they're here each and every day.
When something unexpected happens, like, for example, severe weather, infrastructure issues, train faults, what's the processes behind making those decisions? Do they come through you, or how does it work?
I mean, my job generally isn't getting involved in the day-to-day delivery, although occasionally I do. Most of that stuff goes to our control office. So we've got a control office in Swindon. It's staffed 24/7. Network Rail colleagues are sat there as well. So when we get, you know, a landslip or line closure or a train failure, they'll be the people that swing into action and come up with a plan.
Has there ever been a scenario where like you had to step in maybe, or they wanted maybe like your expertise, or maybe like just a secondary opinion on a decision, or does that ever happen? Or
occasionally I'll get involved. I mean, if I'm out and about on the network and I spot something going on, I'll often ring the control to see what's happening and how they're managing it. Very occasionally I might offer a thought or a suggestion, but they're pretty much on top of it. You know, when we've had really significant events like the Intercity Express train fleet was largely withdrawn one Saturday morning, I do obviously get involved in that type of thing.
all right, so following like the Claire Western video, that was heavily talking about like the driver role. Like, what's your perspective of the driver role, and how important is it to GWR's success?
Our train drivers on Great Western Railway do a really important job, and you know, they're a great team of people. It's a responsible job driving a train, and there's some support from systems, but fundamentally, you know, you're driving an exceptionally heavy object with a large number of people in that is quite difficult to stop. And, you know, it requires skill, it requires knowledge, and it's important that we recruit the right people for that job and that we assess their competence. But yeah, it's a very important role for Great Western Railway, and certainly one that I have a lot of respect for.
And you have drove a train, by the way, before.
Yeah, I always have to be careful answering these questions because I'm not a qualified driver. I've certainly not driven the train on the Great Western network, but I have been allowed to drive trains under supervision on some of the preserved railways where the speeds are a lot lower.
What qualities does someone need to drive a train today? Have those qualities changed in recent years, like when you initially joined, or?
I think we probably understand the qualities we want from a driver a little bit better now, but fundamentally they're similar to what they've always been. You know, there are technical aspects, so we assess, for example, people's reaction time, their ability to deal with situations under pressure. You know, we're looking for people that can communicate well, but also it's a bit of a lonely job sometimes driving a train. You know, you're in a cab on your own, and not everyone is up for that. You know, some people like the engagement with other people. So we do assess people's suitability for that. And the learning process, you know, there's a lot to learn. We've got a rule book. It's quite a big rule book on the railway, and you've got to get to grips with large amounts of that and understand not just what the rules are, but also how to apply them. And not everyone is, again, set up for that. So our recruitment and selection process is about making sure we get the right people. And, you know, we pay, I think, a reasonable salary for drivers, so we get a good number of applicants, and it's important that we select the right people.
That'll definitely make a good video, driver salaries. I guess I know a lot of people would be interested in that. What does the future of the railway look like, both for passengers and staff?
Well, I hope some of the good things about the railway today are part of the future as well. But we want to carry on working to deliver better reliability and punctuality because people want to rely on the railway. We've got some new stations and a small number of new routes opening as well, and we're looking forward to those being part of the Great Western network, but also other train companies like Chiltern Railways are opening new routes as well. So I think it's quite a bright future, but there is quite a lot of cost associated with running the railway, and people are keen to see costs come down. So that is part of the challenge as well.
I don't know how your day-to-day is at the moment, but do you use things like ChatGPT and stuff like that? And are we likely to see automation or AI on railway operations, for example, like the driver role?
Yeah, I think ChatGPT, I use it occasionally, but I think I've learned about its weaknesses as well as its strengths. So I think the thing with you know, AI is that if the facts and the information and everything are clear, AI can do quite a good job at presenting that. But I've certainly asked AI a few questions just to test it out, and it often comes back with wrong answers. And you know, it will often search, for example, the internet, and if someone's put incorrect information in. The other thing I find sometimes with AI is it will often pick up out-of-date information. And I use it with one of my hobbies because I'm interested in aviation, and I found it to be inaccurate there as well. So I think you have to be very careful with AI, and certainly, you know, it needs a controlled environment. You need to be quite clear that the information that's going in to provide answers is accurate and up to date. I think it does have a role on the railway, and we need to manage it carefully. But, you know, one of the things we struggle with sometimes is getting the train service put back together after substantial periods of disruption. And we have our resources, whether it's our trains or our people, in the wrong place. And the question often is, how do we get our resources back where they should be as quickly as possible and resume normal service? And I think AI can potentially help us with that.
Could you ever see a day where AI is involved in everyday operations? I don't know, for example, like a train driver role, or
I don't.
this is just imaginary thinking at the moment.
I'm not really interested in AI taking over particular roles. What I'm interested in is AI supporting roles and making it easier and quicker for things to happen. And I think that's probably not in the front line, actually running the trains and working with our customers. It's probably some of the behind the scenes stuff about how we create our daily plan and how we plan alterations, and then how we communicate and cascade that information through the business.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of scaremongering at the moment. I don't know how often you check your phone and see what's going on, but when you hear a lot around AI, a lot of people claim that they're going to be taking over a lot of jobs and whatnot. So interested to get your point of view on it.
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to predict the future? But I think, my experience of AI is that it has some severe weaknesses. I think there's a lot more work needed to make it, more robust, and that is probably some way off. But I think in the right environment, it can help us. But my perspective is AI is about helping all of us do our roles better rather than getting rid of me or you or anyone else.
It's good to know. All right.
But I might be wrong.
All right. What's the hardest or the most high pressure decision you've made as a managing director?
It's a good question. I mean, actually, before I came to Great Western, I was managing director of C2C that runs out of London Fenchurch Street. And we put a new timetable in, and it was a timetable that I'd inherited. But when we launched it, it didn't work very well. Our punctuality really fell through the floor. A lot of the customers were very unhappy. And after about 10 days, I decided we were going to put the old timetable back. And that was a big decision. And a lot of other people in the industry were like, oh, can you really do that? And I was like, well, yeah, I am. And that's what we did. And then we started again. But that was a tough decision. It was quite a lonely decision because ultimately I had to decide to do that. But once we decided to do it, I think there was a lot of support and a big sigh of relief in the business.
Yeah, that must be difficult, like getting all the backlash and managing that. All right, what have you learned about leading such a large safety critical organization, like looking back over the years?
I think one of the things that I've learned is that, there's a limit to what I can do. I mean, I'm lucky to have this job and be managing director, but actually the business is run by a lot of people on the front line, a lot of our frontline managers, and it's important that we get the right people in the right jobs and let them get on and do things. And I think one of the things that's going on at the moment, there's a lot of interference in the railway, and maybe some people think it's not interference, they think they're entitled to be involved. But I think I've come to learn really that, if you employ the right people and you trust them, you should let them get on with their jobs. And my view is if you don't trust them, well, you should get rid of them and bring people in that you do.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a long-term career in the rail industry?
Well, I think people who are contemplating a career in rail should absolutely give it a go. I mean, whether it's my career or lots of other people, but, many people have joined the railway and built a career and stayed on the railway for all of their working life. And there's a lot of variety in the railway. I mean, it's not just about running trains. There's, we operate a catering business. We're in the customer service business. We've got engineers, we've got drivers, we've got people doing business planning and marketing. We've got HR experts, finance experts. So the railway is full of variety, full of opportunity. And I think it's not for everyone. We do have some people who join who don't like it and they go off and do other things, and that's fine. But a lot of people who join the railway do enjoy it and stay with us for most of their working career.
Now we're just going to go over some quick fire questions for people just to get an insight of you as well. So let's just imagine it's your day off. Let's say it's a weekend. The family have gone out, kids are away. What does your typical day look like? What does fun look like to you? Do you get on the PlayStation, favorite game, or do you go on the computer, or what does a fun day look like?
Well, if I have time on my own, which doesn't happen very often, I have to say, Derek, I'll probably get stuck into some video editing myself. I've got a backlog of travel journeys and experiences that I like to document and stick on my YouTube channel at Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams. But I enjoy traveling myself, and every so often I pop off around the world to Los Angeles or Hong Kong or Singapore or Bangkok or Doha and do a bit of traveling. But most of my time is spent at work or with my family, but it's great to have those little trips occasionally.
So you're more likely to book a flight somewhere and head off somewhere.
I do occasionally do that, yeah.
Have you ever done it randomly, like just a random Saturday morning, just looked on the flights and just flown out?
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah, I went out to New York once and booked it the day before. So.
No way. How long did you stay for?
A day.
Well, considering how long is the flight? I think it's
7.5 hours.
Wow. What did you do in that day?
I went and visited the Concorde that's on the waterside in Manhattan. I went and visited the station, took some trips out on the train. I did a flight to Washington and back to visit an airport, and then I flew back.
Very interesting. I don't know much about aviation, but apparently they're bringing the Concorde back.
Well, there's always talk of bringing the Concorde back. I'm not sure whether it will actually happen, but there are some investors playing around with technology. We'll see what happens.
All right. What's your favourite station in the GWR network? If you had to pick one.
Tough question, my favourite. I'll probably cheat and say two. Paddington's an iconic station, isn't it? It's great to see Paddington. I've got a soft spot for Marlow, actually, which is a very simple station, but I was brought up in Marlow, and that's where some of my early memories of the railway are.
What would you say the most underrated job on a railway is?
It's a good question.
There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. I
think a lot of people focus on the jobs they see. So jobs like our control office, where you've actually got big decisions, a lot of resources to manipulate, is a tough job, and it's a job I've done myself.
What's the biggest rail myth you'd like to debunk if you had to think of one?
I don't know whether it's a myth, but I think people often underestimate the complexity of running the railway and how so many different factors can affect the railway, whether it's people trespassing or the weather or the impact of external, organisations on the railway. So it's not always as simple as it appears.
One thing passengers don't realise that staff have to deal with.
Yeah, earlier on in my career, I had to go out and deal with, really unfortunate events like fatalities and bodies on the line. And I don't think everyone always thinks of the colleagues who have to deal with those type of things.
Lastly, would you say, being a managing director, would you say it's difficult to be yourself at times in the sense of being too smiley or jokey, or do you feel like you have to be stern? What is it like?
Well, I'm not known as someone who smiles a lot. I'm always getting told off for not smiling. But
is that because you feel like that's part of the job?
No, I just think I'm a bit grumpy by nature, probably. But
at least you're honest.
I think I've done this job long enough that I am able to be myself, and I think it is. It's important. Historically, people used to hide if they were interested in the railway. And I think, I've tried to be myself in this job and talk a bit about my interests and my beliefs. And I've also done this job long enough that I can probably say one or two things that perhaps people might not want me to say and get away with it. But I think people appreciate honesty. I think people appreciate authenticity, and actually having corporate bots that just mouth out a load of stuff that their PR office have told them to say. I think people find that tedious and they find it boring. And occasionally I get in trouble for saying one or two things that I believe in that people think I shouldn't say. But who cares? I think, I would encourage more people to be authentic and open and honest, and not necessarily follow the advice of the corporate machines that say you should say as little as possible and keep your head down.
I love your honesty, though.
And one day I might get into a lot of trouble, but I've always got my pension.
I I love your honesty, honestly. But also, I just want to add before we close. One thing I love about you, you're very responsive. Like, I know we don't speak all the time, but whenever I do like message you, very responsive. Is that something have you always been like very responsive? Is it something like a skill that requires that?
I think, I mean, it is difficult sometimes when I'm getting loads of messages on WhatsApp, and I did miss a message at the weekend that I felt bad about when someone needed to talk to me. But, you know, you get WhatsApp and you get text and you've got people messaging on LinkedIn and the phone's ringing and you're walking down the platform and two people are rushing up wanting a chat. But it comes with the territory. And I was just reflecting the other day, Derek, you know, I've sent a couple of messages to people that I want to talk to lately, and they've completely ignored me and not replied. And I think, you know,
sorry about that.
It's a bit rude occasionally, but I have to put myself in other people's shoes, you know, and exactly. It is difficult sometimes in a role like this to keep up with everyone, but I do my best. And if I can't reply, I try and make sure someone else in the business.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I think you're doing a good job because, like I said, you're pretty responsive. Yeah, I think you've covered everything. I just want to say, literally, like I said earlier, most people I speak to when I'm on an interview or film, they would want to know the questions like a week before. You literally turned up today and answered everything off the cuff. So amazing. And everything was shot once as well. So amazing job. Yeah, that's it.
Great. It's great to be on the video, Derek, and it's great to have an opportunity to talk to you and talk to your viewers. And, you know, I'm lucky to have this job at Great Western. It's a great opportunity. I enjoy it nearly all the time, and it's good to talk to people about the role.
All right, last question, actually. If you could sit in front of a young Mark Hopwood, just come out of school, what advice would you give him?
Be patient, play the long game, build up your experience, get as much experience as you can, ask questions, be curious, ask why, and think about how you get the best out of your career.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been amazing.
Thank you.